I'm Hannah Moore, CFP, a practicing financial planner and educator. I'm on a mission to change the way people think and talk about money. Let's get started. Today, I want to talk about why budgeting fails and why it is so difficult to be budgeting and looking at our money on a monthly basis. Now, this is the ins and outs of our money, right? It's money coming in on a monthly basis. It's the how are we spending the money? Why is this so difficult for us to be tracking and really get our arms around this? So, one of the things that I talk about with budgeting is one of the biggest problems is that we start the conversation in the wrong place, right? That we're not starting it in the right location, right? We start with straight to the numbers. We go straight there. And certainly, I've talked about this before in this podcast. There are some people where it is like a matter of survival that they do that. So I certainly understand that. And I understand that. And I absolutely appreciate that. But for a lot of us, and even in that case, it's about getting this bigger picture. It's why. What are our values? How do we want our life to fit in with our money? So let's take a step back. Instead of saying, here's our numbers and here's where the money goes. Let's take a step back and have the conversation of what do we want in our life? What's most important to me? What's most important to my family that we get out of our money? And starting in that conversation there, paint the picture. Imagine what could be possible in your life, right? Imagine you and your spouse sitting down and thinking through like, what is it that we want? Do we want kids? If you have kids, what's a life that we want for them? What do we want for ourselves? What would be an ideal life? Like if we could have it all, what would that look like? And actually go there and think through that. And you might sit there and you might be like, oh my gosh, this is such a silly exercise, but do it. Because here's what you're going to find. You're going to find your silly things of like, okay, yes, I want a Tesla and I'm not a car girl. Whatever the fancy cars are, like, yes, I want that. Or I want this new house. Put those things down and then continue, right? Because after some of those initial kind of like off the cuff things that people say, you're going to find what's really, and again, they could very well be your core values, but then you're going to get to dig into what are the other things that are so important to you. One of the things that we say here is that every budget should tell a story. And that's the thing, is that your story and your life is unique to you. Yes, there certainly will be similarities to other people, but it's what brings so much life and joy to you. What are those values for you? That's going to be different perhaps than what they are for me. And that's a great thing, right? But we have to know ourselves. We have to know what's important to ourselves because then we can get our money and our budget aligned with that. And that's just so incredibly, incredibly important. I have a friend who every year at the beginning of the year, she sits down with her husband. They have kids and a crazy life, and they say, here are our core values. They have 4 values in their life and in their family. And they say, what are the things that we need to do to make sure that we're prioritizing these 4 values this year with our family? And certainly there's money related to this. Every value that we have can be lived out at different dollar amounts, right? But it's about being clear about what those values are, and then going back to your budget, because that's where the magic is. That's where the power of like this budgeting and financial planning really, really is when we mix what's most important to us with the money in our life, and that's the special sauce that I get to see, and it just makes me so incredibly excited to see that. Okay, when we don't do that, we let our money dictate our lives. We let our money dictate what our car payment will be. We let our money dictate how much mortgage we can have. We let our money dictate what our kids' schooling options are. Instead of having it flipped around, where our life will dictate what our money will do. So another reason why budgeting fails is that we don't have a strong enough vision for what's possible with our money, right? So if I am just ho-hum, and trust me, I've been there, and there is zero judgment in any of this. But if we're just managing money coming in and managing money going out, right? That's okay. Like, why would I want to sacrifice? We don't have a strong enough vision for what that sacrifice could lead us to, right? So I had a client recently come in and they had nothing saved for retirement. And so we're looking at their budget, we're looking at their money. We did the budgeting blocks exercise that I love to do with clients. They were overspending, but it wasn't like by a lot. And it was like definitely like some months you just spend more and some months you spend less, right? And we were looking at this and they're like, you could just see this look of like, why are we going to save? Like what, we're trying to save, what seems so little. What is the impact of that? And then I showed them what was possible on a financial planning standpoint, and they could suddenly see a vision of what their money was for. It went from just being these sacrifices just to sacrifice versus sacrificing to get these other things that they really, really wanted. And so I think one of the reasons why budgeting can fail is we don't have a strong enough vision for what's possible with our money. And that's just so incredibly important. And so understanding why you want this, why it may be worth sacrificing or maybe not. For some people, it's not worth sacrificing for, but understanding that is such a critical piece for when we look at budgeting. Okay, so the next reason why budgeting fails, especially if you're in a relationship, is we don't know how to talk about money. It is such a struggle for couples and people to be talking about money. We're not trained on how to talk about money. We're told not to talk about money. We're told that this is a taboo subject, that we are, it's just a very, very difficult thing to talk about. And when we start looking at our budget, when we start looking at how is our money meshing with everything else, there is just this, there's just tension there, right? If you're in a relationship or have a significant other or spouse or whatever that may be for you, you guys are each coming in with these narratives around money. We would call them money scripts, if you would, about what does money mean, right? Is this a lot or a little money? What do you do with money? There's going to be so many nuances on this, and it really takes a lot to be able to have these conversations about your money. One of my favorite examples, we have an exercise called communication preferences that we'll use with clients that will really help the clients like dive down in deep into like, what are the different, how do you prefer to talk about money? Because people are very, very different on that. Like I tend to assume everybody talks about money the way I like to talk about it, but that's just not the case. But one example was, when we're getting into the dollars and cents of things, I need to talk about it. I need to think about it. I need to sleep on it. I need to let things kind of settle inside of me before I can make a decision. My husband is the exact opposite. He's like, give me the information. I'm going to make the decision and I'm going to move on. And so when we're meeting to have these conversations, there's obviously tension that's going to be there. And so how do you build structures around this? So this is just an example of why some of these budgeting is really, really difficult. And so here's the thing. He's not right and I'm not right. Like we both are right? Like neither one of us is right or wrong. Those are just the ways that we prefer to kind of approach money. And it's really powerful when you realize that, because then you can start acknowledging like, what is my preference? What is it that I want? Right? And then you can move forward with that. One of the big reasons why there is so much struggle around budgeting is there is so much shame. So much shame around this, right? Even what I just mentioned of how we talk about money. I could easily go to my husband and just say, I can't believe this. I can't believe that you want to make a decision right away. Like this is such an important thing. You should be thinking about this. You should be thoughtful in your responses. And he could be saying the same thing to me. You should be able just to make a decision. My gosh, you are educated. You have all the information you need. Like, why is this being so difficult, right? Both of those are very shameful kind of positions to take. And I'm not saying that's what we have done in our relationship, but you can see how easy that is. This idea of just shame is such a dividing thing. It so strikes at who we are, and money is so intertwined with who we are, how we view ourselves in relationship to other people, how we view ourselves, yes, in terms of each other, in terms of other people. Everything we do every single day is tying into our view of money. And it's just, and money is such an easy measuring stick because it's numbers attached to it, right? Like you can easily do that. And we're constrained in different ways. It can be hugely emotional. I have had clients where we get to the budgeting conversation and it is a hot emotional topic, right? And there's a lot of ways of kind of approaching that. There's certainly financial therapy is an emerging field that people can go and actually go to therapy around their money because it is that ingrained on it. But it's all about, okay, so let's take a step back. Again, it's diving into these money conversations without having this bigger picture of understanding the why. And it's hard, y'all. Like, I will be the first to say having these money conversations is hard, right? There's a lot of, well, if you would have done this, you should do that. All of that is shame-based. But these conversations are hard. But when you can do it, and it's going to take practice, and you're going to do it over and over and over again. One of my favorite stats, I don't know if this is a coping mechanism or if this is like actually like a thing. But one of my favorite stats is that somebody needs to hear something 7 times before they hear it for the first time. And I think about that a lot, when I'm saying something, certainly when I'm working with clients, right? But this is going to take practice, right? There can be times where I might need to say something to myself 7 times before they hear it for the first time, and recognizing that you just did time number 4, and that's okay. We're on a journey here. Our goal isn't just to do today. It's about this longer term picture. It's about this bigger story, this bigger narrative in our life. That's more than just today. So there is so much more we could go into on budgeting. One last piece is, again, with this shame, with this, you should do budgeting this way. There's a lot of that. Oh my goodness, you guys, I am a financial planner. I am in this space. I'm in this every day. And I will say there are a lot of people who get into financial planning, who give financial advice because they're good at it, because it's how their brain thinks. It's about how their brain operates. And the reality is that a lot of people's brains don't operate that way. And that's not a bad thing. Like that can be a very good thing. It's a very neutral thing. We have some super creative clients. We have some clients who just don't think in terms of spreadsheets. And that's, we created the budgeting block system, which is really kind of your budgeting like on the table to kind of make budgeting fun again. Was it ever fun to start with? Make budgeting fun in the first place. And so that's, again, just another resource, another tool. We'll have to have a whole nother episode on just the budgeting blocks, kind of how we came up with it and why it's so important for clients and people just to be looking at their budgeting in a different way. So we're talking through why is budgeting so hard? So I just want to encourage you that if budgeting is hard for you, you are one of many. Like, know that there are so many people who struggle with this. I mean, I struggle with this at times, and this is my day job. This is what I do for a living. But know that you can do this. Know that sometimes you need to take a step back, get a bigger picture, understand why this is important, and getting a really, really clear picture on that. Because if we know why, there's a heck of a lot I can swallow if I know why. And if that why is big enough and important enough to me. So know that you are not alone on this journey of figuring out budgets, and that this does not have to be a shame-filled experience. If you do have a lot of shame around this is a constant struggle. I want to encourage you to just start rethinking, kind of reframing how you're viewing your budget. Instead of, I should be good at my budget, just say, I need a better tool for my budgeting. I'm not good at budgeting yet. It's a really, really powerful statement. So no matter where you fall on this, know that you can do this. I know you can, and know that stepping back, taking this bigger picture will help you as you move on your financial journey. Thanks for listening to this episode of Everyday Money with Hannah Moore. If you like what you heard, subscribe and check out livewealthynow.com. We have a lot more resources to help you live wealthy now.